The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory, upon which we gather with gratitude. So before we begin this afternoon, I would like to recognize a Parksville athlete, Nicholas Bennett, for his outstanding success at the 2024 Paralympic Games in Paris. Nicholas won Canada's first gold medal at these games in the men's 100-meter breaststroke SB14 category. He also won a silver medal in the 200-meter freestyle. And earlier today in Paris, he won his second gold medal in the SM14 200-meter individual medley. Our congratulations to Nicholas on these incredible achievements on the world stage. We are very proud of our amazing local athlete. We may have more announcements to go. The Paralympic Games are not yet finished yet. There are other Canadians still participating, and maybe we'll have more announcements at future times. So I would just like to ask for a round of applause for the incredible achievement. A good day in Parksville, let me tell you. We have something else special today. I have a special guest that is coming in attendance. If I could ask for our special guest to appear. So our special guest today is MP Gord Johns. Mr. Johns, welcome to City of Parksville Council.
Thank you, Mayor Brandt. Thank you, Council, Parksville Council. It's such a pleasure to be here. First, I want to recognize being on the unceded lands of the Sinanawis and Qualicum nations. And I want to acknowledge the important work that you do and the endless hours you pour in to serving our communities, first and foremost. I think that we know how important our roles are as leaders, that good ideas start in our communities. And our job as leaders is to bring those good ideas and bring them to fruition, whether it be the betterment of our communities or to support the individuals that serve our communities, like our relentless and unbelievably deserving and the most incredible people that put their lives on the line. That's our volunteer firefighters and search and rescue that serve our communities day in, day out, and the sacrifice that they make. And I'm just going to tell a bit of a story, but if you don't mind, I'll be very quick because I know you've got important business to attend to. Back in 2019, I was in a federal election with a young man who's on council here, Sean Wood. And Sean Wood, I'll call you Sean if that's okay, Councillor, put forward a really good idea that we could better support search and rescue and better support our volunteer firefighters. And Sean, who served as a volunteer firefighter here in the community for 5 years, knows all too well the sacrifice that these individuals make. And I thought it was just such a great idea. And, you know, Sean wasn't successful in that election, but he was successful in that he knew that he could continue to serve his community and build bridges. And after that election, Sean came to me and said, you know, I really want to advance this idea. And I turned to him and said, I love it. And we worked together, and Sean helped devise a petition, which I tabled in the House of Commons, and then later an e-petition, which garnered, you know, thousands of signatures to show momentum and support for this brilliant idea to increase the firefighter volunteer and the search and rescue tax credit from $3,000 to $10,000. We hadn't seen an increase since 2013 for these incredible individuals, despite the fact that inflation was skyrocketing and, of course, recruitment was getting harder and harder. We were able to take that petition and turn it into a bill, a piece of legislation, C-310. And throughout that process, we were able to garner the support of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs. We had 165 firefighters, fire halls and communities get behind the bill. And we had party members from all 5 political parties get on board and table petitions in support of it. It took a little bit of arm twisting for a few people, but it didn't take long. And I can get into that story another day, but it was a lot of fun to promote it. But it was a lot of work. And when Sean came forward with this idea, I said, Sean, it can take 3 to 5 years for a really good idea like this. If we're going to get it done. So we did it in year 5, Sean. And we didn't get it quite to 10,000, but we doubled it, and that is history. And I wanted to come here, Sean, because it's so important that we acknowledge people in our communities when they work hard and they put forward good ideas. I know that's why you did it. but we're here to turn it on you, actually, and our attention on you, because that important work needs to be recognized and acknowledged. And I'm going back to Ottawa next week, and I'll be in Montreal, and the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs have told me they're going to be honoring me for my work. But it would be absolutely critical that I'm going to be talking about you and the important work that you've done to start this campaign that we started. And we have work to do because we only got it doubled. We know we got to get it to 10 grand. I'm going to continue to work with you. And I want to thank your council, because your council got behind Sean and you moved it through ABICC and up to FCM, and you did a lot of really important advocacy. And so when we decided to do this today, to come to you and honor you, Sean, Councillor Wood, for the really important, determined tenacity that you brought forward to getting behind this support for the people that we care so much about, that serve us day in, day out, who I can't thank enough. And we decided to get a gift for you. And this print is designed by a 13-year search and rescue volunteer named Shauna Leora from Cochrane, Alberta. And she served 2 years on the Canadian chair for search and rescue. And she was just so moved that her print was going to be going to you, given the hard work that you've done. So if you could come up, and maybe I'll come over that way, if that's a better way to go, Mayor. Yeah.
Actually, right to the podium would be best for all the people holding cameras right now. If you could,
Right.
so the entire.
So my pleasure, Sean, to give you a gift of an acknowledgement of your important work.
Thanks very much.
Of course, man.
Appreciate
Yeah. I'll let you unveil it if you want. Yeah, absolutely. You're gonna have to do that. So. So come over here. We're gonna do a photo with the shot here in the middle. Council. We're part of it.
Yeah, because Mary, you gotta get in there. Good.
Oh, okay.
Mayor's okay.
Then they need to come back here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Councillor Wood has something to say, if that's different. You
Come
know,
stand with
Councillor
me.
Wood, that's not different.
Come stand with me, all of you. Yeah. No, it's not how this works.
Don't look at the box.
Mine's not done on for a reason. Thank you.
Councillor Wood, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just real quick. One of the most beautiful things about this is parties working together, nonpartisan, to get stuff done, because I think that's what has to happen. And divisiveness and partisan politics is not the future. And so that's one of the most beautiful things about this in my eyes. Gord, thanks very much. Thanks.
You too.
Thanks to the fire department too. Thanks.
It's another good day in Parksville. That's what we like. So well done, Councillor Wood. Let's get on with the agenda. Today we have the consent agenda, the minutes of the council meeting held July 15th, 2024, and the approval of the council meeting agenda. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation, noting that in recommendations and under 1B, that agenda item 6A regarding a motion for donation of mural and art pieces be removed from the agenda? So that has been requested. So if I could ask for a mover and seconder for the amended agenda. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any errors or omissions or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Carries. Thank you so much. Today, we have 3 delegations today. The first delegation we have is from Timberlake-Jones Engineering. We have Michelle Jones here regarding a development permit application for 625 and 633 Pioneer Crescent. Michelle, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Nice new sound system. For allowing me to come today to make this presentation. You probably will recognize this property as we've been here a couple of times before through the rezoning process and the subdivision process. Today, we're here for the development permit. This is the last step, just about, in order to finish the subdivision and get it registered. So, see if I can figure it out. Haha. So this slide just shows what the proposed lot layout would look like along with the buildings and the driveways and the site coverage on the property once everything is done. The buildings are approximate as the developer is only selling the land. They're not actually building the buildings, but we've done a building scheme to control the development. This slide shows, so within our development permit, we're requesting 2 variances, which are detailed in the city report by the Director of Planning. The first one is a 3-meter setback relaxation for the rear lot lines for lot 1 and 10, which are the lots that front onto Pioneer Crescent. This is required because under the zoning bylaw, the front yard is defined by a public road and not a internal strata road. So because we want all of our lots to face the internal strata road and become a community, we've elected to have that as our front yard setback. So we will be increasing our setbacks from that road as well. The second variance that we're asking for is for the height of the fence that will be in what is considered a front yard for lots 4 through 7. They front onto an unconstructed laneway in the back that will not be constructed at this time. But because it's a front yard, the fence height has to be 1.2 meters. And we want it to be considered a rear yard for these lots. So we want to do a 6-meter fence or a 2-meter fence, 6 feet. So that is the second variance we're asking, and those are the only 2 variances in the subdivision. That one didn't go. So this plan here shows what the building envelopes will be. And as you can see on the lots 1 to 3 and 8 to 10, we're doing a setback of 3 meters from what would be a side yard, but we're making it a rear yard on the neighboring properties to the east and west. So we're increasing that setback so that it doesn't have the biggest impact on the neighboring properties. So this is our building scheme. And I think there's a copy in your package as well that shows the same thing. And so I would just like to highlight a couple of the things in the building scheme that we think helps fulfill the guidelines of the development permit area. So as I mentioned, we will have approved building envelopes for all buildings and predetermined driveway locations for all the lots. So no lots will have access to Pioneer Crescent or the laneway in the back. Everything will be internal. And we looked at our driveway locations to make sure we didn't have, lights going into people's living rooms and stuff like that. So we're setting all those locations. Each lot will have requirements in the building scheme to facilitate our on-site infiltration system, which will be owned by the strata. So the infiltration system is under the strata road. Each lot will have to maintain their own on-site that drains into that. And that system, as you might recall during the rezoning, is designed to infiltrate the 10-year storm and reduce the 100-year storm to the pre-development runoff rates. So that system is actually installed right now. So that's good. In the landscaping guidelines, we're requiring native and drought tolerant plants and the planting of at least one tree in the front yard of each lot. So this one tree, while it will have more trees, we're gonna have to take down 8 protected trees under the bylaw, but we're gonna replace them with 10 trees. So that's for the landscaping. We're also installing a 30 amp outlet in each garage for EV charging. So it'll be a dedicated outlet in the garage that can be used for EV charging as an incentive. And all the dwellings will be pre-plumbed for solar ready. That includes the conduit and the wiring to the roof. And then all exterior lighting will be full cutoff and dark sky compliant. And this is how we think we're enhancing it and meeting the development permit guidelines that are in the bylaw. And if there are any questions.
Great. Thanks very much, Michelle. Any questions? Councillor Beil, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the presentation. I did read the report. Well, there's a report coming up a bit later and I did read it very carefully. So I understood the front lot, that sort of thing after reading it and rereading it a few times. I'm glad you mentioned the trees. I did read that there's an arborist report in there and about the trees and that they would need to come down. Well, my question is actually about the neighboring properties. There are some neighboring properties that have trees that are very close to the lot line. And I am wondering, in the spirit of good neighborliness, if something can be done to identify an area to protect the root zone of those trees that are close to the edge. I guess I'm just wondering, I did actually drive by and have a look and I can see that there's some grass and there's heavy machinery there, but they're not right up on top of that. But I've seen in various municipalities and even here in Parksville times when that orange snow fencing or whatever it's called is put up so that people don't blunder into root zones and compact that area. So is that something that you could look at putting in place to help mitigate any potential damage to the roots of neighbors' trees along that fence line?
Yeah, we can look at that. I mean, and that's one of the reasons why we made the rear yard setback on those property lines, the 3 meters instead of the 1 meter under the bylaw, is to move the new houses away from those trees. Realistically, the only construction that's going to happen in that area will be the placement of the fence that has to go on the property line. So we have to place a fence on the property line as a requirement of the development permit. So there will be a new fence along that property line. We will be having our arborists go in and look at those trees on the one side to see, how they're going to be affected by the fence before we put the fence in. But we could get our contractor now to go in and kind of flag off that 3 meter section and see if, I don't think they've disturbed it along there yet. They know not to go along the property lines right now, but I can make that happen probably this week or next.
Go ahead, Mary. Councillor Beil.
Thank you very much for that. And I agree that, like, from what I've seen so far, the heavy machinery hasn't been right there, although there's a big pile of gravel that's along. But I think it could possibly help alleviate some of the fears of neighbors that maybe somebody in a heavy equipment would drive up over there. It's just a thought.
Yeah,
I
I
really
mean-
appreciate you thinking about that.
We
Thank
can
you.
try that. I'll talk to our contractor that's on site now, and then maybe we can leave it up when they start building the houses. I mean, they're gonna have to encroach in it a little bit to dig their foundations and stuff. And we're gonna have to go in there and put the fence in, so that's probably when we're gonna do the most damage, hopefully not damage to those trees. And we may have to do some trimming where they come over the property line. So, but we were gonna have our arborist come in before we do any of that work and talk to the property owner.
Any further questions for Michelle? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Michelle, for this project. I've always been supportive of it. I know we need housing. And then I talked to some of our constituents and they want, the costs. And I know you can't count on exactly the cost, but I understand they're all have either potential suites in them or lockdown, or so that there is a modification for people, so they won't all be one family homes necessarily.
The zoning would allow for them to have suites under the new zoning that was just
Mhm.
passed.
Mhm.
What we're looking at, the plans that we've come up with to date show about 1,300 square feet of ground floor usable area for the dwellings, 1,300 to 1,400 square feet. There could be a second floor, but we would have to look at the floor area ratios. I'm not sure that there's gonna be enough area for people, but if they want to, they can. Yeah, there's no restriction to it. It's just, it's a little bit tight on the smaller lots.
And if I can comment further on that, Michelle, there's a building scheme that's going to be put in place as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a building scheme. There's a copy of the building scheme in the council report.
Right, thank you. Any other questions at this time? Okay, Amit's hand is up now. Okay, Councillor Gord, go ahead, sir.
Hello, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I wanted to thank Michelle for the presentation, and I was quite impressed with the building scheme. So I just wanted to convey my thanks. And I know there were concerns from the neighbors in Pioneer Crescent on the street. So I think you folks are doing the best you can to protect the trees and also build I know this is just an application for subdivision, but hopefully the building scheme in place will have some really nice homes which will fit into the neighborhood quite well. So thank you for doing the work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gord. Councillor Grenz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to our delegation, thank you as well for your presentation today and for the efforts to mitigate damage to neighboring trees. I'm curious about the unconstructed lane, so I'm getting some feedback here. The units 4 through 7, did you say they're facing that lane? So the entrance will be to that lane that is future concept, or I see the driveways go in from the common access road to those units as well.
So the actual front yard faces the lane, but we're gonna call it a backyard. So that's why we're putting the 6-foot fence along that back property line. So there will be no access to that future lane. I guess potentially if the lane ever does get built, they could maybe add some access, but at this point, we're not having any access back there.
Okay, thank you. And because just as Councillor Beil points out with the neighbors, there are trees on the undeveloped lane there as well that we may want to try to preserve. If you can, definitely want to make sure that those are left undisturbed as
Yeah,
well.
so once we take down the trees on our lot, my intent would be to have the arborist look at what's left on the city's property. And then determine with the city if there are any danger trees or anything that dead or, you know, something that needs to come down on the city property. But we wouldn't take anything down that wasn't approved by the city.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? Thanks, Michelle. You answered
Thank
a lot
you.
of questions for me. It looks good, what you've done, the densification of it. I think it's going to make a very nice housing packages for some very happy families. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have another delegation coming up, so forth. That we have, our next delegation is Seira Developments regarding a development permit application for 703 Turner Road. A presentation by Al Baker and P. Waldhuber regarding the development permit application for 703 Turner Road. At first, there's a quick announcement by Councillor. Go ahead, Councillor Beil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Mayor, I will recuse myself from the delegation for 703 Turner Road and later on from item 4D. Given my residence and involvement in the neighborhood in question, I believe that there would be a perceived conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beil. I would just ask if the delegation just hold off arriving at the podium until Councillor Beil has recused herself into the back rooms, so to speak. And Councillor Beil, we will come and get you when it's appropriate. We won't forget you. Have a cup of coffee while you're there. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I don't know if both of you are coming up, but come on up, sirs. And if you could introduce yourself, I'd appreciate that. You have 10 minutes. Thank you for your attendance here today.
Good afternoon. I'm Lindsay Baker. This is Peter Waldhuber. And thank you for seeing us today. It's sad to see Mary go. She was a big help for us when we were with the ADP. Mayor O'Brien, yes. Thank you for seeing us, council and staff. Thank you. Yeah. I'm going to read off our main features today. Hopefully I won't read too fast, and I'm just going to cover all the main points of how we feel this development has succeeded. The development site. This is a low impact development site using existing excavated ground. The environmental covenants will be registered on title. The riparian area will be protected, and we have a province approved wrapper report. The lands will remain undisturbed and protected, the forest lands. The site will drain into a storm management filtration area designed by our professionals. We are providing a statutory right-of-way for the city of Parksville for future uses. The existing underground services adjoining this property are easy to tie into. The Strata Road was designed by us to keep traffic speed slower, and it also adds building articulation. No large trees will be removed to accommodate this development. The adjacent property to the north will not be impacted. Carefully designed on-site storm management infiltration systems will be installed. The price point of the units will be obtainable. We have one dedicated parking stall for car share program, and it will have an EV charger. The landscaping. We have designed this development site for all ages. Interconnecting ramps and pathways allow accessible access to all areas of this development. A large community garden with interconnecting walkways allow sustainable social living. Lighted walkways and roadways with sidewalks and crossings will enhance on-site exercise. A family-friendly Montessori playground will benefit younger users. A private yoga area next to the mature forest will help users relax and recharge. I could use that right now. I'm doing pretty good. Various types of native vegetation and drought-tolerant plants will be planted. Storm roof runoff will be held in a tank and allow water reuse in our community garden areas. Pavers on patios and parking areas will allow water infiltration and also reduce the heat effect. Parking storm water will drain into rock gardens, planters for practical water control. Planting has been designed to reduce privacy concerns and will also add some green to our site. We have worked hard with the ADP to create a beautiful site. When we first brought it to them, they definitely had some concerns, and honestly, they had some really good points. And we wanted to say thank you to the ADP for helping this project move along in the right direction. It was actually honestly really good. So we're happy that we went there and now we're here. The buildings. The garage level will be built using a full height, well-insulated concrete form. The garage level also allows for enclosed, secure garbage and recycling areas. And that means each individual unit will have their own garbage and recycling, and it would be obviously bear-proof because it's in an enclosed garage and not outside where a bear could stroll and try to get into it. The main floor area will be accessible by ramps. These ramps also act as egress in the case of any events like a 200-year flood. So all walkways are above that level, so you can leave the property if you need to in the worst case scenario. The homes have been designed with families in mind and future accessibility needs. Window frames and sloped roof lines create contemporary design development. Buildings will be only 2 levels from the Turner Road height. This matches our neighborhood. We have solar panels on all buildings, and every garage will have an EV charger. The environment. The roof slope design helps increase solar energy, and the overhangs shade interior spaces. Water reuse, water management, and pavers for ground cover help with drought conditions. Protecting the mature forest and waterways for future generations is a direct result of this development and its concept. Thank you. Peter?
Thanks, Lindsay.
I'd like to speak to some concerns that residents may have regarding the proposed development. Some of this site sits in the flood zone, as many of our coastal communities do here on Vancouver Island. We have provincial approval that supports our proposed development in this flood zone. All our professionals, including geotech, civil engineer, flood engineer, biologists, have designed this development to withstand that 200-year flood event. And that flood event actually happened in 2021 in November, when an atmospheric river hit this region and this area, resulting in some standing water where our playground sits, which that elevation sits about 3 meters lower than our living area sits. We've spoken with some adjacent neighbors that have lived in around that property for over 35 years and have never witnessed any severe standing water in our footprint of our development area. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Yeah, if you just hang.
Any
around
questions?
the podium here for a moment. Yeah, thank you so much. I believe the important facts that you said, we're relying on professional. It's a professional reliance model, which you've utilized. I've read through the reports you have. It's quite extensive, and I appreciate that. And plus, getting provincial approval as well is imperative that before we move on to stuff like this. I can only echo my appreciation, the fact that you're building homes for families. For families and so forth, including playground and so forth, and even as you say, this so needed yoga space that we all need these days. But it's actually relying on the fact that Parksville, the city of Parksville, is increasingly under pressure to change their demographic, to make it more family friendly and so forth, with the intention of attracting more working people in and a welcoming place for them to have families. You mentioned, Lindsay, regarding an attainable price point. We've had pressure from the province, as well as many other groups and associations, that said we need more mixed housing availability possibilities for our area, which is what we have. I see a friend of mine is actually in the audience today, and he introduced me to the concept of plexus, and more plexus. And thank you for that, because that is exactly what you're giving us. And that is exactly what's going to be required to get that price point down. From the single family dwelling, we know that we're targeting, we're registering around $1 million right now for new SFD. But these plexus and the townhouse complexes that you have are going to bring the price point down to make it more affordable for families. So I do certainly appreciate that attention to that, identifying that by attracting more families. You also help us achieve our goal. We have a lot of pressure on us to attract doctors to our area, which is a big competition throughout all of Canada. And one of the things we've had is that the doctors that we're trying to attract to Parksville have indicated that it's very expensive to live here, and especially for a young doctor just starting off, and then hopefully in starting their families anyways. And so we appreciate the fact that these are going to come in at an attainable level for them as well. Plus, it's in a really nice neighborhood as well. So and it's in Parksville. So how much better can you get than that? So thank you for that. You've answered all my questions I had written down before you appeared. I'll move on to Councillor Grenz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to our delegation, thank you very much for coming today, and thank you for working with the ADP. And yeah, it's a great crew there that are providing lots of good feedback on behalf of the community to projects like this. A common theme in any community around development is the rights of property owners to get the best value out of their thing they own. And I think just in society generally, we talk a lot about rights these days, which is absolutely valid, but the corresponding aspect of rights is responsibilities. And with this particular property where it's located, there's an additional responsibility to be good stewards of the river that is right adjacent to this property. So I appreciate you directing some of the concerns around that head on today and in your presentation. And that tells me that you are taking that responsibility seriously. That said, I do have some sort of questions around that specifically. So maybe I'll start with the neighboring property that I'm sure you're familiar with. The city has recently done a deal with Nature Trust British Columbia. That property is currently being restored. The development on the property is being removed, and there's a lot of sensitive processes around doing that. And I'm wondering if you've had a chance to speak to that property owner, basically your neighbor there, about your plans and how you can work together as good neighbors, which is what I tell anybody who's got a neighbor, is to be a good neighbor and talk to the neighbors. Have you spoken to them about your plans and gotten any feedback, and how you can maybe make sure that you're both taking the responsibility around this area very seriously?
I'll speak first, and Peter, if you want. When we first started the project, that was all in the works. We heard stuff in the background of that the city may be purchasing it. We were talking to different neighbors, trying to find out what was going on and who was going to end up with it. And that was when we were at 69 units and working with the municipality, and we came with our applications. And since then we had scaled things back and then continued to work on how we were going to work on that back area. And that's where a storm management area is, on that back side, which will actually have basically a small rock retaining wall that's near the property line that stops any sort of groundwater or anything like that, or surface water, from going towards that property. And I've spent a fair bit of time walking on that side and making sure that we have everything in control on our site, that nothing's going to impact on that site. Now, with that said, we'd be really open to let them know what we have in as mechanisms in there. We do know we've had the trees all surveyed, and there's no branches that are going to get cut on that side. It's all farther back. So there's we're not cutting branches. We're not putting any equipment near those root zones. We're going to have very large construction fencing all in place prior to any building or excavation on that side. And same for that repairing side. We'll have silt screens all along the ground on that whole bottom side, making sure during construction that there's no issues with anything transferring from one side to the other. And but again, we don't know who they are, and it would be great to talk to them. We want to have an open dialogue throughout the whole project, because it's really going to be like a 3-year project, because you got to build it out in phases, right? And so that wouldn't be the first phase on their side anyways. We'd be building on the front section, which is building 6 and 7, which is right on the Turner Road. And what that allows you to do is to make the road and street frontage all finished. So the road and all that work kind of is done for our neighbors up there. And then we'd work back from that middle utility corridor down the middle. And that would allow us to tile the services in and get everything done there. And then we'd switch to the west side and then be able to take some of that ground, put the buildings on that side, and then move some of that material, because we don't want to have to move material away and bring it back and have disturbance in the neighborhood. So we'd move the material over to the other side, which is like a holding area where the rec building would be. And that's it's a really good distance away from any repairing areas. So we know we can have that in control. And then we'd build the east side out, which is still further away from that back property line. And then what that allows us to do also is, as we build it up and out, it keeps all the egress pathways connected. And that way, always in the case, if there was a 200-year storm, that you always have access to a higher ground where you can walk out from your livable area. And then finally, that back area would be built out, and we would have that all in control. So we'd have a long time to work with them and make sure that everything was really safe. And that's really important to us.
And yes, we will be reaching out to that property owner. And if there's any kind of efficiencies, depending on the timing of the restoration of that property, then we're more than willing to work with them and maybe even supply them a corridor to remove materials or what have you. We're certainly, we're right there. We're neighbors. And of course, we're going to reach out to them and work with them if we can. Thank you.
Follow up, Councillor Grenz.
Thank you. Yeah, and one of their interests there for the neighbor, being Nature Trust of British Columbia, is to see the relic channel that is on this particular property and the river more widely, the estuary there, well, they're doing restoration work there to enhance salmon habitat is one of the goals. So I guess maybe can you speak a little bit to how your project could help rather than hinder those efforts?
Oh, thank you. When we originally started working with our ecologist, I walked the whole area with him, and we trudged all through the area safely and carefully. Now we do know that we don't have the ability to enhance the area because it's landlocked on the riverside on their side. So in the conversations, that was where we weren't able to do anything for our area because that area wasn't connected. Now, if there was a process where they worked with ecologists and biologists and created something that allowed for water to be flowing through their property, to be creating some sort of habitat, then our area is now protected through a development permit with a registered covenant to create it as a forest reserve and protected land. Now that would be all easily put into place to be able to make that into something safer and something better for habitat. And we didn't have control to be able to, and we honestly had lots of conversations about it where if we could figure it out a way to make it better, but it was out of our hands. And I know we look like these big developers trying to throw a whole bunch of units there, but that's important to us too. It really is. So if they have a strategy of ways that they could be able to make that work, and then we can work as a team, then that's the best outcome for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I just hold on for 1 second. And to the audience, please. There's a lot of conversations going on in the audience. Please, if you want a conversation, take it outside the room. It's not fair to your neighboring people in the audience that can't hear the presentation. So if you have comments, please take it outside the room. Thank you. Carry on, sir. Councillor Grenz, did you have one more follow-up?
Thank you. If it were on the table as part of that conversation with the neighbors, would you be open to doing either a lot line adjustment or subdivision or some other mechanism? And this might be a question to the Director of Planning, but would you be open to that? I mean, there'd be some expense associated with that. So I don't know how that all figures.
So we went in that direction too. We talked about making it into a park or giving the land to you guys and making that a park. And then what happens is it triggers a subdivision. And really that's something that doesn't work on this property. And so that's been seen before. And so working with everyone to come up with the best option to develop this land that was best for us to protect the land through covenant and through forest reserve. And then that way it's basically, maybe it's not as easy to use as a park, but like it's not going to be a playground built in the forest, right? But then that's truly what people want there is they want to protect the forest and the lands. So us doing it as a forest reserve, and that does the full intent of what it's supposed to be for. Now we did do the right of way, and that connects the road right of way that's already there, and it connects to the crossway to come out to the other dead end. You know, but the way I designed that and worked with our professionals was that it's right in the middle of that whole forested area. So it has a wide footprint. So you'd easily be able to meander a pathway if that was what this parcel decided to do. They can meander a pathway through trees and systems to make sure that the forest retained itself, but then also was able to get access for people. So that was something we had lots of neighbors say to us that they want to be able to use the park and enjoy it. And that was us trying to help make that work. So, yeah.
Thank you. I'll go to another councillor, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for all your efforts. It's sounds like it's been quite a project.
Yeah.
And that, it's private property, and I understand that. However, there's always been, and you know this, about the concern about the Englishman. And the Nature Trust has been involved in many properties on the Englishman. And so I was just wondering if there's any way, and, maybe downsize somewhat, less people near the river, because the river needs to be left by itself. And that has just been my experience. I've been involved with the Englishman for my whole life. And we have floods, goes all over Plummer Road, and it will come up and down. And I'm not a young thing, so I've seen quite a bit over the years. And so I am concerned about the habitat and not as many people near the river. And this is the challenge we've been having with any development. So if there's a compromise you can make and do something really like Councillor Grenz was talking about, working with Nature Trust, and see what you can do, it would be a win-win for the citizens, for hopefully you too, not to have, because Nature Trust it's a society, they have funds also, and you not to lose out on this, but to compromise in some way. That would be my suggestion for the long term. And again, having done all the tests and everything, I don't know if you have anything to say how that could be. Yes, I appreciate that.
Again, we'd like to work with them and talk to them more about this and these mechanisms I was just talking about of ways we can help protect things. And that working together as a development and working with them is the key to this. We're going to stay within that buildable area. And I just want to remind staff and council that we're below our density. We don't have any variances. We don't have any height variances. We don't have setback variances. We're in full conforming ability here. This has nothing to do with neighbors that way. Like, we want to treat them well, but we're here for just specific reason of how it fits and works. And then we have all our professionals who have professional liability insurance, and they're all involved and they're all signing off on this. So we would rather just work really good with them right now and continue. We've already downsized it several times, and we're really happy with where we ended up. The design panel was too. So we're taking a pretty strong stance on that, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
We just if I could add, as Lindsay had mentioned, that I think our maximum density could have been 68 units. And I mean, this is how many this is about Plan F that we have here. So we've scaled it down to 54 units. So we've tried and we realize this is not about just packing in units and creating density. And we've been sensitive to this parcel of land from day one. And it's been a real challenge. but working with with ADP at the design panel, as well as all our professionals, we feel like we've come up with a great plan for that buildable area, which is west of the relic channel. Anything east of the relic channel doesn't get touched, other than the proposed right of way that we're offering, that landlocked piece of property that you're speaking to, that Nature's Trust owns. So we're doing what we can, and certainly we'll reach out. But you know, we feel that we're working as hard as we can within the multifamily zoning that was put in place many, many years ago by the municipality. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Councillor Gore.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll be quite candid here to the applicants and the delegation. Thank you for your presentation. We as council are quite limited in what we can do, especially if this is a development permit application. But being candid, had it been a rezoning, I would never have supported such a high density close to the river. Yes, this RS2 zone in an RS1 zone close to the river was put decades ago, I guess. At that time, I don't know how cognizant we were to protecting riparian areas or flood zones and whatnot. The concerns that the neighbors have are quite valid. I hope you understand that. Having 54 units so close to the river, which is again way more than the entire neighborhood combined to have 54 units and that many people. Now I'll come to the question. How much of this property is actually in a flood zone? And how much fill will you be using for that?
Thank you. We're not bringing any fill in to raise like the livable area up. I know that previous applications, I think the previous owner was looking at bringing 1,000 trucks in there to do that. So what we've been able to do is design it with a garage on the lower level, which is non-living space. And so that the plan is to try to get to that just undisturbed grade, just for your footings, just like any other construction, and build our garages, which you don't live in. And there's a main entrance has its access from that lower level up, but then off of the main floor, you always have a patio and you have an access door from your patio. So if you need to, you're on that higher level as well. And that creates what's called your egress. And that allows you to walk away from the property. And it's not like in an emergency, the water's not going to raise really, really fast. You're going to see what's happening. Now, we've been there lots, and we know that with the way we have the buildings shaped in that U shape, that and the way that we have our landscaping plans, that even in 50 years, if the sea level rise has raised a lot, and if there was a king tide at the exact same time that we have an atmospheric river, because that's what they're talking about, is they're having all these events all at the same time, not just one of them. Even at that point, what would happen is you'd have your feet would get wet in the garage, and it's all concrete. And then a week later, it would go away. And then it would be, your life would go back to normal. It's not everywhere else in Parksville, if you look at the flood mapping, the whole area is gone. Honestly, like all the lower residential areas, like there's 500 homes down there, they're all in that whole flood mapping. All of Parksville City, even close to here, would be all under that same flood mapping. So when we're talking about this property and concerned about it, we're actually mitigating the issue. There's a lot of homes and a lot of owners out there that are going to have a lot of issues. If this actually happens, it's going to be really bad. Delta, Richmond, it's all gone too, right? So like what we're doing with the construction and the egress and the safety, it should be held to a high standard and should be an example of how we're doing this, because the previous owners, they didn't take this approach. We're taking something really different here, and it should be used as a tool for everyone to move forward.
Follow up, Councillor Gore.
Thank you. Can you speak a little bit to the setback, the 70-meter setback for the riparian zone? And if I read the report, I think it mentions additional 15 meters from the relic channel. Are you honoring that, or are we staying with the 70-meter setback for this development?
We're honoring all setbacks that are allocated. So from the riparian setbacks, the bylaw zoning setbacks, all restrictions, we're conforming to all of them.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, did you have your hand up or not? No, okay, that's good. I think you've answered all the questions. I thank you, gentlemen, very much for coming today. And we'll be obviously discussing this a little later on in the agenda. So
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Council, we have one more delegation today. I think we have one more. That's it. One more delegation is from D. Lambert regarding a rezoning application for 156 Ford Avenue and 151 Hickey Avenue. A presentation by D. Lambert. If you could identify yourself. D. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Come on up to the podium. Mr. Lambert, you have 10 minutes. I'm assuming you're Mr. Lambert.
I am Mr. Lambert.
Thank you. You have 10 minutes for your presentation and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members and community members. My name is Derek Lambert, and I just want to say thank you for having me today. I won't take up too much of your time. Just a little bit of a backstory. Vancouver Island resident, was lucky enough to grow up in Vancouver Island, and was hoping to call Parksville my home, but had a recent change of events as far as a career opportunity. So led me to chase after this rezoning and development application. So as you know, I am the owner of the property. I purchased the property about, I think, 2021 with the hopes to live in the property and build a new home there. But I had a career opportunity down in Souk for a career firefighting position. So I took that position, and it kind of left me in a situation on how to move forward with this property. What I would like to do and what I'm proposing to do is follow suit with the incentives of the government, and that is increasing densification and also allowing for affordable housing. I would like to. Currently, the infrastructure is already in place. There's 2 houses on the lot. One faces Ford Avenue, which is the original house, and the other one faces 151 or Hickey Avenue. And that house was recently built and got occupancy in January 2024. So what I'm asking is to rezone the property and then subdivide it so that those 2 houses become separate entities. One in which I would sell off and allow someone to get in and have the chance to be a homeowner, and also allow me to keep a parcel of land in Parksville, which I could potentially come back to at a later time. Like I say, it's pretty straightforward. Everything's already in place. And I think it meets the direction of the government and hopefully Parksville. I think any other questions or concerns?
Yeah, Council, yeah, just to reiterate it, this is subdivision of a piece of land. Right?
Yeah.
Subdivision, and the rezoning application is to accommodate that subdivision. You're not, your intent is not to demolish or deconstruct either one of the homes on those?
That's correct.
That's right. It's just you're creating 2 separate lots anyway, so they each have their own lots as
Yeah,
well as their homes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? That one disappeared. I'll look over here. No, we're all clear. Councillor Beil, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a comment that it's certainly a unique piece of property. We don't have that many properties in town that would, in fact, front, if you like, front and back on separate homes. So it certainly makes the idea more, feasible, doesn't it? So it's really quite a unique spot you've got there.
For sure. Thank you. I was thinking the same thing when I originally purchased it. I saw it as an awesome opportunity and a wicked place to live. So. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, and so Derek, and congratulations on your position with the Souk Fire Department.
Thank you.
Is that what you're working with now? Souk?
Yeah, that's correct.
And we work very closely with the Souk mayor, and we have a couple of councillors that are colleagues of ours as well. So good luck with your career.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having an interest in Parksville as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Council, that's it for delegations. We are going now for reports. The first report is the Director of Community Planning and Building for consideration of payment for park purposes as applicable to the subdivision of 625 and 633 Pioneer Crescent to consider a required park contribution triggered by subdivision. We have any presentation today or not, just as per the agenda items that are already attached to the report. So council, you've already seen that. Do I have a mover, seconder for the recommendations as noted? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beil. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That Councillor Grenz, thank you. That carries unanimous. Thank you. The next report we have on the agenda is also from the Director of Community Planning and Building for consideration of a development permit application for 625 and 633 Pioneer Crescent to consider issuance of a development permit for those parcels. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendations as noted? Moved by Councillor Grenz, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? Councillor Grenz, Councillor Gord. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Mayor. If I may, I'll ask Mr. Russell a question, and it's kind of similar to what Councillor Grenz previously alluded to. Like, I would personally like the city to work towards preserving that lane that backs onto this property. So what perhaps could be the process for this council to undertake in preserving that lane so in future it does not get developed and all the mature trees that don't come down?
Thank you. I'll direct your question to Mr. Russell, if I could, sir.
If I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Gore, it's a challenging question to answer. And part of the reason is that as part of the subdivision approval process, under legislation, an approving officer is responsible to ensure there's access to lands beyond. So the challenge becomes, if there's larger properties that could be further subdivided, they need to have an opportunity to have access. And in the case of this particular road right of way, it's existed since, I think it's the 1950s. So all of those, before it was even within the city. So all of those properties, if you look at the size of them, have the potential to be further subdivided. So, and the challenge is if council was to, let's say, close the road, someone else would end up having to dedicate road anyways at somewhere to provide access as part of other subdivision approvals. So the city can certainly, delay when some things occur where other access is provided. At the end of the day, though, subdivision is more of a technical exercise where it's more of a response in reaction to a proposal where denial is based upon something not meeting a technical requirement. But if something meets a technical requirement, then it ends up needing to be approved. So I don't know if I really totally answer your question there, but it's not that the city or council doesn't have options. It's just that those options may ultimately not be successful because as part of the subdivision process, roads and access are part of those considerations.
Thank you. Councillor Gore, follow up. Is that your hand up?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Blaine, for trying to answer my question. I wasn't trying to trick you. Just to paraphrase what you just said, approving the subdivisions makes it even harder to preserve that lane. Is that correct?
In the case of this particular proposal, it has no impact because that lane already exists there. but depending on the specific layout, it's possible that a road dedication may be necessary to facilitate it. So a solution to prevent development on the lane may just end up with a road being dedicated right adjacent to the lane as part of a subdivision, essentially.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Any further comments? I think we already got to the move in sector, did we not? Yes, we did. Yeah. So all those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you, council. The next report on the agenda, once again, Director of Community Planning and Building, for consideration of the development permit application at 1116 Herring Galway to consider issuance of a development permit. Mover seconder for that, moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. Next report on the agenda is from the Director of Community Planning and Building, consideration of a development permit application at 703 Turner Road for consideration for issuance of a development permit. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendations as noted? Sorry, Councillor Beil, I'll let you say what you need to say.
All right. As I said earlier, I will be recusing myself at this time due to a perceived conflict of interest.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Beil. I'll wait for you to leave the room. Thank you. Thank you, council. Do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendations? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor. I'll second it. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Councillor Grenz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question perhaps through the staff around if it's possible to get a bit of a staff update on potential vision for this area as regards the 130 Shelley Road property, and how we can make sure that anything like this will harmonize with our objectives around the 130 Shelley Road property plan and the trail.
If I may, Mayor, through to Councillor Grenz. So,
Mr. Russell.
A couple things. So I don't have intimate knowledge of the specific 130 Shelley plan, but my understanding is that it's going to be primarily in a conservancy situation where it would be principally retained in an environmentally sustainable, sensitive, untouched kind of way. The 703 Turner property, that portion of the site, more than half the site, I would say it's almost 2/3 of the site approximately, would essentially be untouched. So it would be in keeping with that natural habitat area. There is also issuance of the development permit does not prevent future enhancement work within that area. So where a property owner is open to that idea, and I'm sure lots of property owners would be, particularly if the area can't be developed anyways, I would assume would be open to to enhancement type work. So our DP guidelines specifically exempt enhancement works from needing a development permit. It also specifically exempts removal of invasive vegetation. So there wouldn't be an approval requirement to do that future enhancement work, provided it's consistent with with provincial wrapper requirements. So they would obviously do that in consultation with a biologist, but yes, they could certainly do those enhancement works. With respect to a pedestrian connection, so we have this is entirely voluntary, and it may or may not technically work. We won't know till the future, till the city investigates at that point in time whether or not it wants to put a pedestrian connection through. And obviously regulations can change and all sorts of things can change. But we have entirely at the property owners has volunteered to provide a statutory right-of-way in favor of the city that could allow for a potential future access route for the public. But again, that would be subject to meeting the regulations at the time, and that time is unknown, and whether or not it can ultimately be achieved, I don't know. And this, as I said, this is not something that is locked in by this development permit. It's entirely a voluntary offer, and they could rescind it tomorrow if they wanted to. But as I said, it's because when it comes to development permits, council consideration is really within light of the guidelines, whether or not something meets the guidelines. And that's the only criteria that council can make its decision on in this case.
Follow up, Councillor Grenz.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that background, and I'm fully aware of sort of the limits to what council can really do on any development permit. That said, we still want to make sure we're doing whatever we can at this time when the conversation's open with the developer to make sure that we can get sort of a win-win-win out of the situation. So I guess like there are concerns around many concerns that I'm sure the developer will be aware of in this situation. Obviously the neighborhood concerns, but habitat concerns, river, and also engagement and concerns around Indigenous interests in the river itself, historically and to this day. So I guess we don't have that much discretion here at this table, but I do want to feel comfortable that the developer is going to do the right thing and work together with all the different interests because of the unique nature of this property. And as I said earlier, like the unique responsibility that you have as stewards of this property. I like from your presentation, I've seen awareness around that, and I'm encouraged by that. So I guess maybe to council, I don't want to necessarily hold this project back because of my concerns or like hold it hostage to those concerns, but I do want to feel confident that those concerns are going to be mitigated as much as possible. And then fully recognizing that on the other side of this coin is that not only do we have restrictions around what we can do at this table as regards this or any similar proposal, the provincial government's legislation is mandating certain things in order to create more housing. And if I were to take aside the concerns I have around the riparian areas and the habitat, if that was not an issue on this, I would look at this project and say, wow, this is an amazing project. It's got solar built in. It's got EV capabilities. It's got a very strong community feel to it, that there's an effort put in to make sure that people who live there will have a good standard of living with their neighbors. So those are all really good things. So I guess all that rambling is to say that this is a real challenge. And I hope that if and when this proceeds, because it is more of a when, that the developers are taking their responsibility very seriously and reaching out to all the different stakeholders that don't have a property ownership stake, but they do have a stake in it and what happens there. So that's kind of what I got to say.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Councillor Grenz. Councillor Wood.
Thanks, Mayor. And thanks to staff for the new microphones that are working great for us. There's no wires. That's amazing. I first wanted to start by thanking all the people who wrote in. Obviously, public feedback is part of our job. In this case, you know, the developer is not asking for any variances. It's within the OCP, it's within the zoning. And, you know, one thing that I try to keep in mind is it's private property that's been purchased. And so there's not many of us who, you know, would like someone else coming in and telling us what to do with our private property. In this case, you would, you know, there are people who wrote in who would like to tell someone what to do with their private property, and I get that. I think a lot of the concerns aren't necessarily for the flooding of the units. It's more for the habitat. And I want to specifically thank James Craig for swimming that flood habitat channel. Obviously, the setbacks have reflected the work that Mr. Craig did. So when it comes to the provincial legislation and OCP, we have a provincial election coming up. I would urge, speak to the candidates and make sure that if you want, deeper setbacks for the riparian zones, then make that an issue. Is it enough as it is right now? Those riparian zones? Probably not, but that's what the province has set. If we get into OCP, if we open that up, be sure your voices are heard and that the city maps are reflective of what the public wants. The other side of it is that federal liberals, federal conservatives, NDP, provincial NDP, federal NDP, everyone is asking for us to build more housing because a lot of people sitting in the room have single family detached that are worth $900,000, $1.1, $1.4, which is great if you're already in the market. But the people who are not in the market, they're like, what are my kids going to buy? And so with such a demand for housing, there's a lot of pressure on local governments to make sure we're building housing. It's not that we're in the pockets of developers. I still have a mortgage, so whenever my check is coming in from developers, I'll let you know. That's not what's happening here. Every level of government is screaming for more housing. And the people who have beautiful homes, single family detached, they want to keep everything as it is, and I get that. But the times are changing and density is needed because not everyone can afford our $1.2 million single family detached. And so these are the things that we balance at this table. And that's where we're sitting. So I just want to make those comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. So I would just offer a quick comment on that. We at this council table have to rely on the experts. We can pick up some of the words. We can pick up riparian zones, floodwater zones, all the climate zones, and the 100-year maximum build outs. But that's not our expertise. The expertise is by the professionals that we rely on that write the reports. They not only write the reports, they also sign off the reports to say that these reports are done responsibly. They're not doing it at the behest of the developer for money. They're doing it because this is the professional reliance we rely on professionals to do. And that's why they wear that nice little ring on the finger and they sign off of this because they are responsible for what they do. They're the ones that tell the developer, this is what you can do. This is what meets provincial mandates, but this is also what we recommend you do to build on this property. And when it comes right down to it, we rely on professionals all the time to whatever building inspections we have by our building inspectors to make sure that those homes, our buildings, are being built properly to code, which is to protect all of us and protect our buildings. So in this particular case, the developer in questions have actually achieved all of that and more, far more exceeding all the setbacks and so forth that are required. So I understand the pushback from the public and so forth, and we're getting an awful lot of pushback as well regarding the amount of development in Parksville. And I have to address this. And it's this development that's all happening in Parksville is to make a better community and recognize the fact that we have a responsibility as council. We are increasing all the development, the density in our city is received or all being done within the town limits. The plans that we have are all being done to a vision of creating, in this case, more variety of housing. The variety of housing has been told to us that this is needed in Parksville because we desperately need to have more affordable housing. And people say, what are my kids going to do? They can't afford to live here. So this council's responsibility is to attract development in areas that can take on this increased density to make for more affordable housing for our kids and our grandkids and so forth. But other people that are working in our city, providing the services that we need, an opportunity to get a piece of that real estate. And that's what these developments such as this does. And then when a development like this comes along and then creates a even better development by creating, you know, community gardens and playgrounds and so forth. And then they go to saying we're putting solar panels up on the roof. We're going to go to heat pumps. We're going to go to stormwater retention. Getting close to step level 4, I would guess, without even suggesting it, taking all the best things of it. EV chargers at every not proposed wiring. They're actually going to be in place. The EV charging systems are going to be ready because we know that's coming. And so they've ticked off all the boxes that I need, as well as creating affordable family housing. And this is what we need in this area, folks. And so it's our responsibility to look at this and say, we think that this is a really good plan, but we're not sure. We sent it back to the professionals. We sent it back to the advisory design panel, and they picked this project apart left, right, and center. I watched it on it. It was just amazing. Did the recommendations, went to the developers and said, if you did this, this would be a better project. They looked at it and they said, you're right. Thank you for pointing that out. They put the necessary changes through, went back to the ADP as well, who said, thank you, you did this, maybe tweak this and tweak that. The developers have done that as well. They've done everything we've asked for. In this particular case, you've heard me say it before. We just don't want development in Parksville. We want extraordinary development in Parksville. That's what we want. We want better developments than other cities. Because why? Because Parksville is Parksville and we deserve it. We have a very special location here. And as Councillor Grenz has pointed out about protecting our riparian zones, so the rivers and the ocean, that's what we're all about. Look at us. We've done so many things that have enhanced that. We've worked out deals with nature trusts and so forth. We are doing everything we can to make Parksville even better, as well as protecting the habitat. And I can go on long and hard about what our Arrowsmith Dam does to protect habitat that's paid for by the city of Parksville taxpayers. So we are very about protecting habitat. So when I see a project like this that identifies that, as well as provides the housing, as well as maybe going to give us an opportunity to attract doctors and health workers to our area, which we need so severely, then this is a win for us. This is what we can do for our community. I'm supporting this project as such, and I just wanted to kind of lay in the fact that we have to rely on the professionals here to make sure that we're getting a good project. I have to also say on the presentations I heard today, I heard from Lindsay and when he was asked questions from Councillor Grenz, described in detail after walking this property and describing in detail, oh, over in this corner, this is what we're going to do. Over in this corner, this is what we're going to do. These are not just developers from out of town that are coming into this area. They've actually walked over this entire land, found out what didn't work on it from previous proposals, and looked at it and said, we can do better. And that's what we said. We can do better, and you can do better. And they've come back to us and said, we think we got a better project here. And they come to us and I say, thank you. Anyways, so I'm supporting this project and I applaud council's questioning on this to make sure, but I believe we're in very good hands here. So, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's so cute because you're looking at me when you're saying those things. And I do believe in all the professionals, no kidding. What I want to do myself personally as a councillor is I want to, and Councillor Wood mentioned this, that there is an election coming up and there is ways of changing things because things are changing. We have our rules, we have our provincial setbacks and everything that we're doing, and the developers have done this very well, like the mayor said, and I have no doubt about that. But I will stand back on this and I will vote against it only in that I want the people who are really concerned to take a stand and look into this provincially and do something about it if that's a concern, because we do get a lot of, as you know, people sending us letters about their concerns. So I think that I can put it back in that regard, and that will be a way to do that. Not that I don't believe we need the housing and all the things that have been said, because it's been very well put together and there's no question. And that's what I thought I would do personally, stand back and vote against the project, but for that reason, not because I think it's not good for Parksville, but I think it's good for the future, the people who are concerned to then get the laws changed, and they can do that because we have other people coming into power maybe, or being elected, I don't know, and then they can find out what to do. So I think that it leaves it there so that it can be done like that. That's what I'm going to do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that and explaining, but we have to rely on the provincial government mandates that are in place right now. And that's what the developer, and you as a property owner, does that exact same thing. So as long as you meet those provincial regulations, as it stands right now, like regardless of what happens in the future, there's a lot of things that are going to change in the future. Building codes are going to change, everything changes, but standards change. But in the meantime, we have to rely on the standards that are in place today. So to say that you can't support it because, you know, maybe things are going to change in the future is not fair to a property owner.
That's
you know,
not,
because so I'm just having difficulty understanding.
yeah. What I meant by that was, and I didn't explain myself probably, is that this, if I did stand back and not vote for this, then the people that are concerned about it will find out what to do about it in the future. And they will know that I'm sincere about that. I'm not trying to say the development's not good for us. Parksville should have this. We need housing. That's all good. And it's a good development. But if I stand back and do that, or maybe because I've expressed myself this way, then they will know that I do that. I can vote for it if you'd like, if you think I should. So it's unanimous, then that's fine. And I'll support that. But I want the people that are writing the letters that are concerned about this to make a stand and do something about this in their own way for the future, not for this development, for the future. That's all. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
I understand a little
Yeah.
more now. Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe I could suggest, Councillor Martin, in that particular case, we could maybe entertain a motion at future council meeting whereby as if this project is approved and so forth, we did it with, you did it with some reluctance and so forth because you feel that the standards need to be relooked at, re-examined, and maybe changed to include better habitat protection or something like that. And so that could be in the form of a resolution.
Okay.
And that is something that we could take to UBCM, ADICC, UBCM, to start the process, to get the province listening. But I think by turning down the project, by drawing a line in the sand, and by turning down a project like this, that is good, as you've recognized, is the wrong message, because we know that they're saying we need housing, and we got that before they got it. We knew we needed housing. We didn't need the province to tell us. So the thing is that in this particular case, you're saying that perhaps the standards for habitat protection, fair enough. Then let's have a conversation about that, and let's work on something to try and change that to suit your once you get the information that you think it should be met at, we could do something like that. Would that be
If
fair
I can have,
to get to the province, and then you know how?
but that isn't for this year. That would be another year, wouldn't it? Yeah, next year.
Well, yeah, you'll be well. The resolutions are closed for this year, but we still got a couple years left.
Yeah.
We can still do a lot of good in that 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that
Okay.
that's how we could accommodate, I think, what you're asking for.
So what you think is we shouldn't do it locally. It should be done province-wide.
Well, we can't change the regulations that the province of.
Oh, but the
put in
people
place.
can. That's my point.
But well, yes. If
that is
the
my
people
point.
can recommend to you what you think it should be, then you, as an elected official,
Mhm.
have the right to try and put that into resolution and to take it to the next level of the province. That's your job. That's exactly it.
That's my point,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
don't want to keep on having this information and then nothing's done. I just would like it to be done.
And I get that totally. And
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate to have that conversation, but I just believe it's not appropriate to turn down what we really need in the city to try and make a point to the province, because the province isn't,
Okay.
yeah, that's just, I think we could do a better job of accommodating what you're trying for.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Martin. Councillor Gord, did you have your hand up? I see your arm. Yes, okay, there it is. Okay. Councillor Gord.
Yes, thank you.
If you could
it's
lean in,
appropriate-
Councillor Gord, could you lean into your microphone a little further? Just you're cutting out somewhat. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good.
Thank you. If I may, Mayor, I have another question for Mr. Russell, if I may quickly ask. Just going through the report once again, it talks about 7.5 meters of flood construction levels. So how does the applicant plan on achieving that 7.5 meter elevation flood construction level without using the fill? I'm sorry if it's in the report, I have missed it.
Yeah,
If it-
Mr. Russell, if you could.
If I may, your worship, through to Councillor Gore. So the bottom of the floor system of the habitable space is above the flood construction level. So all the places where people will live or store goods is above the flood construction level. There are garages below, as we're shown on the plans.
Any further questions, council? All those in favor? Those opposed? Councillor Gore, I'm sorry, you're in a minimalized screen right now, so I can't see your hands. So you're
No,
gonna
I'm
put your
opposed
hand
to this.
up one way or the other in front of your face that's the only way I can see you. Yes, if you could, please. Yeah, did you vote opposed
Yes.
or for the project? Did anybody get that? Sorry. Repeat,
Sorry,
please.
I'm opposing the DPS.
Yeah, it's opposing. Okay. Opposed. Okay, that's fine. So Councillor Gore opposes. That carries. Thank you. Thanks, Council. Good discussion. Okay, let's move on. We have next we have the report. Do you want to leave or are you going to stick around? Okay. Thanks, Mary. Did you get a second cup of coffee? Did you get a second cup of coffee?
I didn't.
Thanks. Okay, I'll just wait for anybody that council, I'm going to ask you, does anybody need a comfort break at this time? Are you okay? Or okay? I mean, you just had one. If anybody wants one, I'll call it down. Yes or no?
I would like a break, Mayor, please. Thank you.
Okay, so let's do it. Okay, thank you. Council, we're going to adjourn for a quick comfort break. It's 2:35 right now. If we can get back at 2:45. Thank you. 10-minute break. Thank you.
Yeah, that word, so it's not like, because I didn't dare leave.
I know, that's right. You can go. I know I can't see, but then I mean, they're talking out there, but I can't see him. Yeah, I think he said comfort break, right? He did. Thank you, Council, and I'm assuming Councillor Gore, if you're there, if you could turn your camera on, then I can see. Thank you. All present and accounted for. Thank you so much. We'll reconvene now. Council, thank you for that. We're moving on to reports. The next report on the agenda is from also the Director of Community Planning and Building for consideration of the zoning amendment application at 156 Ford Avenue and 151 Hickey Avenue to consider a zoning and development bylaw amendment. Do I have a mover, seconder for the recommendations? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Beil. Sorry. Is any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Derek, for your patience. Next report on the agenda is from the Director of Finance for the 2025 to 2029 financial plan timeline to provide council with information regarding timelines for the 2025-2029 financial planning process, our favorite time of year. Thank you. Is there a presentation at this time, or are we just doing the recommendation, or are somebody online coming in? Okay, no. Okay, so we all had the report. So, okay, we're good. So do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation as noted? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Grenz. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. The next report on the agenda is from the Manager of Administrative Services regarding 2025 to the 2025 permissive taxation applications. To seek council direction on permissive taxation exemption applications for the year 2025. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation as noted? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? Maybe he scratches his nose. Okay, I see no discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. It carries unanimous. The next report on the agenda is from the Manager of Administrative Services regarding the 2024 fall grant and aid applications. Financial grant and aid applications from community groups and organizations. Do I have a mover seconder for the recommendation for the fall grant and aid applicants? Moved by Councillor Beil, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? The only discussion I have, if I could ask from staff, who the staff or the council members are in line. Do we have that information?
Yes, we do. It'd be Councillor Gore and Councillor Beil.
Thank you. And so for the convenience of the audience, that would be Councillor Gore and Councillor Beil on the Grant and Aid Application Committee for 2024. That has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. Good luck, Councillor Gore, or Grenz and Grenz or Gore. Sorry, Gore. Councillor Gore. There you go. Good luck, Councillor Gore and Councillor Beil. For bylaws, we have three readings. We have the Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2024, number 2000.149 for the Max and Pex Amendment for 365 Amoliette Street South. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Grenz. Any errors or omissions or discussion? All those in favor? Oh, yeah. You're just early? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Bylaws, we have three readings for the Permissive Taxation Exemption Bylaw 2024, number 1593. Do I have a mover seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those, any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Carries unanimous. Bylaws we have up for final adoption, the Downtown Business Improvement Area Establishment Bylaw 2024, number 1592. for the Downtown Business Association Improvement Area Establishment. Do I have a mover or seconder for that? That's moved by Councillor Grenz and seconded by Councillor Beil. Any errors, omissions, or discussion? All those in favor? It carries unanimous. Thank you. We have a motion from a previous, we have 5 notices of motion on the agenda today. The first one being from Councillor Beil regarding the UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Grant application. It has been provided on the agenda in lieu of notice, so council can vote out of the September 4th regular meeting. Do I move it or seconder for that item? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beil. Do you want to move it or do you want to just second it? You can't do both. Okay. I'm going to have Councillor Wood move it and Councillor Beil second it. Any discussion? Would you like to speak to it? You can at this time if you would like to, or it's up to you.
I will just say that, I wholly support this. I hope that everyone will support this. The tools that are required by our volunteer and staff firefighters are very, very important. And that I think it's straightforward in the recommendation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Beil. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you. The next notice of motion is from Councillor Wood regarding the FireSmart Community Funding and Supports Program Grant application. The following motion has been provided on the agenda in lieu of notice, so council may vote on it at today's meeting. Do I have a mover seconder for the recommendation? That would be Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beil. Any discussion, Councillor Wood? Okay, we'll carry on. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Next notice of motion is from Councillor Wood regarding endorsement of Councillor Wood for Federation of Canadian Municipalities for the FCM committee appointment. The following motion has been provided on the agenda in lieu of notice, so council may vote on it at the September 4th regular meeting. I'm going to move this. I need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Wood, would you like to speak to this or not? Thank you, sir. Okay. Any further discussion? He's gone. Okay. All those in favor? Or did you, was that a question or you're voting now, Councillor Gore? You disappeared.
No, sorry. Yeah, my phone is acting up. I have a question for Councillor Wood, if I may, through you, Mayor.
Yes. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Gore.
Yes, thank you. So, Councillor, if you can speak a little bit to this committees and just for the public is aware what roles they play and how these appointments are so important, and all the work, and it's all volunteer. On top of that, you do at this council table and at the RDN. And if you can speak to that a little bit, so we are aware what committees you might be elected to if this goes through.
Okay, and I understand the question completely, Councillor Gore. I'm going to actually ask in consideration of the following motion to follow this one. I'm going to ask first for Councillor Wood to actually speak to what this is about. Then I'll ask Councillor Grenz to also speak as well because of the following motion, so we can address that at the same time. Is that okay? Would that answer your question, sir? Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Sure. Through yourself, Mayor, to Councillor Gore. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities is a collection of every local government across the entire country, and FCM advocates for local government issues with the federal government. And the committee that I will hopefully be appointed to is Community Safety and Crime Prevention. And so I sit on that committee as an appointee. It's not an elected position. Whereas if you were elected to the board, the executive board of FCM would be an elected position. This role requires some travel, but it is of no cost to the City of Parksville taxpayers, as it is paid for by the Union of BC Municipalities Small Communities Travel Fund. Since Parksville is less than 50,000 population, we qualify for that fund to help small communities participate in bodies like this. So on the Crime Prevention and Community Safety Committee, we talk about safety issues across the entire country. And it was on this committee that last year I brought forward the motion for the volunteer firefighter and search and rescue volunteer tax credit increase. And it was passed by the committee, and it was passed by the FCM board, and then it was advocated by FCM staff. There's about 200 staff, I believe, on Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and they are, in my opinion, becoming more formidable as time goes on, and are a loud voice for local government. So that is what FCM does, and that's what I am asking for an endorsement for at no cost to the City of Parksville taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. I'll ask Councillor Grenz to add on anything further that he feels would be pertinent.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. Our strategic plan here at Parksville Council calls for, as is stated in the motion, is an advocacy role. So we're working hard with provincial and federal elected officials to advance the priorities of Parksville and our region here, which is called on because there are so many things that really don't fall within our jurisdiction that we have come across our desk. So the goal is to make sure that we're advocating on behalf of our community and bringing these issues forward to decision makers at the provincial and federal government. I think in this particular year is a pivotal one federally, which is going to be, I think, a great opportunity for us to step up our advocacy role, given that there's a federal election on the horizon. Today, we saw that the confidence and supply agreement between the federal NDP and federal Liberals is now come to an end. And so there's going to be extra listening happening, I believe, federally. And it's an opportunity for us as municipal elected officials to take advantage of the situation with the election on the horizon to make sure that our needs are heard in particular. And we do have some needs coming forward in our community that will require federal support that also relate to our other strategic priorities. So really what I see here is an opportunity to connect a bunch of dots on our strategic plan. And I think that doing this role at this time is going to really serve that overall objective, our strategic plan. So thank you for council for considering this proposal.
Thank you, both of you. I would just want to say on behalf of the City of Parksville, I thank you both for your volunteerism to this, to further your advocacy roles. You've shown your abilities as advocacy in the short time we've been at this table. We've got another 2 years to go, and I'm looking forward to it, but I totally appreciate the amount of time commitment and the extra effort that you have to make, and it's time away from your families as well. And that's very important, and to recognize that you are doing this without compensation and at no cost to the City of Parksville, but you are actually advocating for us, and obviously through your roles as RDN directors as well, it's a perfect fit to seek advocacy for items related to the entire Oceanside, Parksville, RDN area. So once again, my appreciation and thank you to you both. If there are any further comments or questions, all those in favor? Thank you. That is first one. And now I'm guessing that we're going to have the next motion is Councillor Grenz for the endorsement of Councillor. Sorry. Councillor Grenz, endorsement of Councillor Wood. No, it's I got a typo here. Sorry. This is for Councillor Wood, Grenz for endorsement of Councillor Grenz for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for the FCM committee appointment. The following motion has been provided on agenda in lieu of notice, so council may vote on it. Any further questions on that?
I'll just make a comment, Mayor, if I may.
Okay, so yeah, there you go. Councillor Gore, go ahead, sir. And then Councillor Martin.
Yeah, a quick comment, I guess, to Councillor Wood and perhaps to Councillor Grenz as well. If you folks are already aware of our ever increasing policing costs and with the fire department, and hopefully at the FCM level with the federal government, you folks can push for some constant funding, or like with the policing as we are seeing, with all the costs that we see, and with the renovations of the fire hall and everything, hopefully there can be a constant flow of funding from the high senior levels of government, if that could be brought forward as well at your committee positions, because property taxes and all these costs are becoming more and more unsustainable through the property taxes. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Wood, do you a response?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Gore, for that question for sure. FCM's primary goal right now is to let the federal government know that we need a new municipal framework for paying for infrastructure, which includes police. And Councillor Gore, thank you for your resolution last year, which I also presented to the Committee for Community Safety and Crime Prevention, which spoke to those tiers of RCMP policing, which we're going to be hitting quite soon as we hit 15,000 population. And so I think the federal government is perhaps slowly, but hopefully a little more quickly getting the understanding that, you know, grants piece by piece don't really help us with the ongoing costs of running a municipality. And so we're hoping for some federal money to help us manage the growth that they're asking for so desperately. Thanks.
Thank you. And that plays into exactly what Councillor Grenz said, that I think 2025 is going to be a very good year of listening by the federal government. So good timing. That is any further discussion. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you both, Councillor Grenz and Wood, for taking the time from your families and speaking up for us and coming back to us with, you know, some ideas that whatever you've learned. And I appreciate that because it's time's precious. So thanks again. Yeah.
Thank you. All those in favor? Councillor. Yeah, there you go. Yes.
I don't believe that we
Oh,
have.
sorry. Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for backing up. Let's ask for a mover and seconder for a Councillor Grenz appointment. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Wood. Seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Thank you. The next notice of motion we have is from Councillor Martin regarding the Mount Arrowsmith Biosphere Region Request for Parksville Wetlands Inclusion. The following motion has been provided on the agenda in lieu of notice, so council may vote on it at the September 4th regular meeting. Councillor Martin, I'm going to ask if you could make your motion and to read out your entire motion.
What I want to say before, thank you very much. When I joined this as a liaison, the Mabry, I didn't know anything about it. And that was the reason why I thought I should do this. And so now we're having more and more information being shared in the community. So much so that I think that people are now aware that we are privileged to be in this biosphere, one of 19.
If I can just hold on.
So should I have my motion first?
Yeah. Let's read your motion out and let's get it on the floor and then you can do
Okay.
your preamble.
So this is the motion right here, the recommendations, right?
Yes, if you could read that out.
The council support the request for the Mount Arrowsmith Biosphere Region for the inclusion of Parksville Wetlands as a core area in the Mabry zonation within the UNESCO designated site, and then the mayor be authorized to provide the required letter of support.
Could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Grenz, seconded by Councillor Beil.
Right. Okay.
Since it's your motion, sorry for
Okay,
interrupting.
yeah, sorry,
Carry on, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I was just wanting to say that what I've noticed, and it's in the paper even, we've got an article in the paper that just came up about the biosphere, just and the amount of money being given to it. I was up in the Englishman's River Falls Park just on the weekend, and it's all on their designation there. And it's going to be in the classrooms, in the schools. It's very much now known. And it's only been a couple of years. I mean, I never even heard it before. So I'm not the only person, I don't think. So I appreciate you supporting this, and our wetlands are very important to all of us. And so I would like to have that support, please. Thank you.
Further comments? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Grenz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't actually have any comments. I have some questions. Maybe, I don't know if it's to Councillor Martin or through to staff, but I'm just curious whether the core area in the MABR zonation, does that carry any specific implications? Are there any obligations, responsibilities, limitations, or anything that might come with that designation? I'm not familiar at all with what the potential implications are here. Of course, we want to do right by the Parksville wetlands, so I want to make sure that
Yeah.
I understand the full picture of what it is that we're supporting.
Yeah, Councillor Grenz, and I appreciate that as well, because I was going to go there as well. I'm uncomfortable supporting this at this time. I would like to ask if we could ask for a report from staff instead of like giving just a endorsement of this designation. I'd like a report from staff to suggest what this looks like. I'm not sure what this designation entails, and whether it means that Mabry has say as a designation in the in this particular area, like for the wetlands, and what that entails. I'd really like a director of planning, and I'm going to go to our director of planning since he's here right now. Mr. Russell, would you be able to, like, in a report? No, I'm not asking for it today because we didn't have any background information, so I'm not fully sure of the implications, but I certainly would appreciate your counsel on the opportunity to look at this and what the effects and ramifications are. Mr. Russell.
If I may, Mayor, through to yourself and council, certainly at council's direction, I would be more than happy to look into the matter further. I believe that for this year's inclusion for Mabry, they had a deadline, I believe, of sometime in early September, and that's the reason why it's being requested to appear. That being said, it doesn't mean that the request couldn't be included as part of their thing at some point in the future. The city is in total control of the wetland. It's registered as park. It has a number of provincially regulated environmental features on the property. So it's not an item that's going to be developed in any way. Where the devil of the details is that where more information would be helpful is, my understanding is it becomes a core area of an ecological preserve. And the question that for the city, I think in looking into this, will be, does that preclude public enjoyment of said, or to what extent may it impact that public enjoyment? So we would certainly look into that as part of a report at council's pleasure. It just, as I said, for inclusion as part of Mabry's request for this year, I suspect it would not be back to you. You'll be away at UBCM. It would be sometime after that, and that would be past the Mabry date for this.
Thank you. So you're the mover of this. Would you be interested in changing your resolution to exactly what Mr. Russell said, to ask a report of this?
What they were wanting was a letter of support.
Yeah.
And by the 15th of September.
Yeah.
And so I think if I could have it in writing or something saying that we would like to I could adjust the motion to do that and just not have it. A letter can go to them, but not, how can I say it? With the, not the letter about supporting it. This is what we need to do in order to follow Blaine's advice.
If you were to put a motion forth exactly asking what Mr. Russell is prepared to do, like to prepare a report of it and so forth, and have that put through, and if it passes by council now, then Mr. Russell can complete that, but with the recognition that it's certainly not going to be done in time for September, which I'm not sure why the deadline would be. Like, they'd be happy to have that designation at any time. In the meantime, I think Mr. Russell has confirmed that we have definitely preservation models in place anyways to make sure there's no development, so forth on the, so we're not in danger of having something come forth. So if I would suggest that maybe we get asked for the report first, and then that copy of the, if that resolution goes through today, then we can send a copy of that to Mabry.
What I was thinking about as he was saying this is that the whole area is open to the public. You know, the designation already is. I mean, you know, like he was talking about, the people will be able to enjoy it. Well, they already are. Every part of the Mabry designation, it's all there. I mean, it's right in the parks, it's everywhere. So maybe that is not really, maybe that's a moot point, because we already are enjoying this area.
But I think that as Mr. Russell said, the devil is always in the details. So maybe by designating it as a core area, it's going to change. Possible that maybe it does, maybe it does not. But I don't know that at this particular point, you know, what is going to change anything on it. So that's the information we need to, so we can let them know that we're looking into it. But at the same time, I don't think we could give a letter of support, carte blanche right at this point.
Okay. What I was trying to do is, you know, we talk about the staff and all the work they have to do. So here's something else to pile onto their list, you know. But anyway, a letter, yes, you know, a letter like stating that is what we discussed today. So do I have to make a motion to that?
I think your motion should be, CEO Kaler could probably help with a quick motion on the fly right now to suggest what you want to do. And then we can send that, if it's passed, we can send that to Mabry.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Councillor Beil. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I guess I just wanted to add, I'm curious as to whether this is required in order for Mabry to access some additional funding, or, you know, why do they need this? Why are they requesting it? So that's often the reason behind having something. So what does it mean to have it as a core? And does that assist them in some way, whether it be research opportunities or grants?
And I hope Mr. Russell's report would actually include that information. Yes. CAO Kaler, can you give us something on the fly?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully the new microphone is working. So just for clarification, we actually had Councillor Grenz and Councillor Beil move the motion that's on the floor.
Yes.
And I fully agree with council that there's really not enough information to understand the full implications of what that designation would mean. And so I think at this point, there's two options that I can see. One would be that motion be defeated or deferred until staff, or referred back to staff, I guess, until we can come back to you with the information. So it's really up to, I guess, the council as a whole to decide, do you want to defeat this and sort of start afresh, or do you want to refer it to staff to bring it back to council with the implications of passing that motion, essentially?
Are you okay with that, Sylvia?
Yes, that last
Councillor Martin?
suggestion, yes.
To defer.
Refer back to staff.
Refer back to staff
Yeah.
for further information.
And if I may clarify with council, a timeline would by the end of this year be sufficient, just given the workload that we have? Or like, do we want planning staff to stop everything and turn their attention to this? Like, what's the priority that council needs for this one?
I can't, sorry, just my own person. I can't see it being a priority. We didn't hit their September deadline to get that in place. So I think before they do it again, there's going to be possibly another year. Sure. I know that their funding is pretty solid, because I also saw the amount in the paper anyways was over 600 grand, I believe, that they were successful in getting, and good for them. But in the meantime, I think the timeline can be as Mr. Russell has time for. There's not a huge priority to remove anything else out of your existing workload. I certainly was not expecting it in 2024.
Thank you very much. That helps us a lot.
Okay, they're good with that? Thank you. Okay, so we vote to defer. I guess we.
If I may, so the motion would be amended slightly to refer the motion that was moved back to staff for a follow-up report to council with the implications.
You good with that? Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
We've already been moved and seconded. And so all those in favor? All those in
I have a
favor?
question, Mayor, before we vote on this. For Councillor Martin.
Sorry, you have to lean into your mic again, Councillor Gore. We're not getting you. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So just a question, is this the right time to ask question to Councillor Martin on the motion?
Oh, sure. Yeah, because I haven't called the question officially yet. So yes, it's still be in the discussion phase. Go ahead, Councillor Gore.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. So Councillor, if you could just give us a background, like how did this come up? Like why does Mabry want this? Are you aware? And why now?
Councillor Gore, I am not aware at this moment. I got the letter, I guess it was in July, and I brought it here. And so I didn't review it before I came here, and I apologize for that. So right now we're deferring it. So the study will be done by our staff to tell us. It's just a procedure, I'm sure. It's a formality. They're expanding their whole sphere of knowledge about the area in a public way, for sure. So that's what I have to say to that at the moment. Okay, thank you for asking.
Councillor Gore, are you good with that? Thank you. Okay, let's call the question again, unless there's any further discussion. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. The carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for your assistance on that, Mr. Russell and Ms. Kaler. Okay. Any other notices of motion at this time, Council? I see none. I'm going to ask for liaison reports. We'll now move into liaison reports. I'm going to go right to Councillor Beil. Go ahead, Councillor Beil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start with the chamber, and just as an aside, although we have had a break from these council meetings, out in the community, a number of nonprofits carry on, and I had the opportunity to assist to take part in these meetings. So first of all, I'll start with the Chamber of Commerce. So the Chamber of Commerce, the board had a meeting in July, and that one was on site at the Delvey warehouse. And for those of you who may not know what Delvey stands for, it's Deliver Vancouver Island. And the new warehouse is off Highway 4 behind Spunky's. And having the meeting there allowed an opportunity to have a tour of the facility and what it can offer. The space has plenty of room for more businesses in case anybody out there is looking for some space to store things and ship and receive, as well as other organizations. They can take advantage of the services they provide, and people can contact the chamber to get more details. I hope that some of you had an opportunity to take advantage of Summer by the Sea Market on Craig Street. It's wrapped up now, but what fantastic weather for almost every Tuesday. I think it may have rained once. Lots of visitors and adding a great deal of vibrancy to the downtown area. I know I enjoyed sampling a number of the food truck offerings and as well as other wares from the vendors. Also, I'm mentioning food trucks. The chamber has been coordinating the food trucks in our community park. And while the park is less busy in September, they are still in place there. I saw many long lineups at food trucks, so it does seem to be something that people enjoy having in the park. Any question there? I will shift to the Oceanside Community Arts Council, if I may. The Arts Council and the MAC, that's the Macmillan Arts Center, have continued to be very busy. Now, you may all realize that the Arts Center is in fact Parksville's early school building. So I don't know the exact age of it. And as is the way with old buildings, it's always in need of some attention. So they've had a fire inspection, which was successful. And they've also undertaken to have an overall inspection of the building to determine its general state. And it received a rating of fair, which is not bad considering its age. I think that's what my doctor said mine was the last time I had blood report. Fair. No, she said, not bad, not bad. Okay, all right. I guess that's okay. Anyway, I'll go on to say that both the MAC and the OCAC are supporters of BC Culture Days, which is coming up at the end of September, and that should be very engaging. A lot of activities will be taking place right next door here at the kickoff weekend. And also, some of you may be aware that Route 19A Music Festival is already underway. And the last weekend, there were concerts in Qualicum Beach, but this Friday, there will be a concert at Knox United Church. And on Saturday, a free daytime concert in the Memorial Plaza. And Saturday evening, a concert at the MAC. So the festival was made possible by many sponsors, including the Arts Council, the MAC, the RDN, and the Parksville Downtown Business Association, among others. This is a new festival for the area. It's basically a small halls, so Route 19A. And finally, I'll finish off with the Oceanside Task Force on Homelessness. As you may recall, it was really quite warm this summer, and there were a few days that we were in extreme heat, an extreme heat warning situation. I think it was about 4 days. So the coordinator will be preparing a heat response report to give an overall view of how that worked out and what took place. Also coming up in October the 7th from noon to 3 p.m. at the Parksville Community Center on Mill Street, Project Connect, a host event. This is a health fair that's aimed to connect those experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness in our community with local health and wellness services, agencies, and support resources. The Salvation Army and Forward House provided an update about their programs. And some concern, ongoing concern, is that there is currently no definite word on a possible location for a cold weather shelter come this winter. So again, a concern, and hopefully something will come to be, but there's no definite word at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beil. Councillor Martin.
Back to Mabry, sorry. I'll just read this. There was been press about the grand opening on August 18th, which was well attended by all levels of government plus over 100 citizens. You can go to visit the new premises on 124 West 2nd Avenue, Qualicum, and can check the Mabry website for hours open. They're not open like all day, every day, but they are open 3 or 4 days a week. My understanding is for the public to learn more about a biosphere, and as we're one of 19. There is a pilot project introducing Mabry to students in the area schools. When you visit the Englishman's River Provincial Park, you will see the biosphere shown on the map in the park, like I mentioned. And so there's signs coming up everywhere about Mabry. So then I will go over to the museum here. It's been a successful summer season with well-attended musical events. The numbers are up at the museum somewhat. I don't know the percentage, but they are. I was at a meeting in August. So much so that there is also another classical in the courtyard event coming up on September 12th, 6 to 8 p.m. And details and tickets are on the Parksville Museum website. The consistency of having the manager, Rachel, from last year has made a big difference in all areas. Everything is running very smooth there. So she's been excellent for the museum. So any questions about either one of these things? No? Okay. That's it.
Thank you so much, Councillor Martin, as well. If any other one, anybody else have any other reports they'd like to bring that isn't necessarily on the agenda? Saying none, I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder for adjournment this night. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Grenz. All those in favor?
Mhm.
Councillor Gore is, all those in favor? Thank you, Councillor Gore.
Yeah.
That is unanimous.